It's the Pikey and Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show. Alex Loughton, my co-host. I'm Chris Pike. Can you believe, Loughz, that we've made it to 4 shows? Who would have ever been able to imagine?
We'll do this every time, hey? Like, oh, we made it to 4. We made it to 5. Let's just assume we've got a pretty good quality product here, Pikey, and then let's just automatically know that we're heading to the promised land.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope the Orange Army, let's hope the people of Cairns, let's hope everybody with an interest in Taipans basketball is enjoying what we're producing, because we're enjoying bringing it to you. And we've got another packed show as well for you this week. We've got 3 games to look back on from the Taipans over the last week. There was a tight loss in Adelaide on Saturday, a fantastic win Monday night back home over Melbourne United, and Thursday another tight loss in New Zealand. But the good news for the Taipans is they're now back home for the next 3 weeks, and 1 game a week, all in front of the Orange Army to look forward to.
Get to recuperate a bit and lick the wounds, but certainly a massive game at home. Really fun to see that game, Pikey, and had a lot of good comments actually about the Pikey and Loughz show. I thought I'd pass that on. Some of the fans are asking about it already and commenting that they're really enjoying the insights. So I think we're on the right track, and we'll slowly make improvements each episode and try and really keep things moving along nicely.
Yeah, that's the plan, and we want to be here for the community of Cairns as well, and we want to partner up with as many companies as we can. Cairns Total Physio obviously have been quick to jump on board, and we can't thank them enough, but we want to be partners with the Cairns community, and we want to provide you with a product that you are proud of, but we need some support as well, and if we can partner up, let's hope that we can do some special things as we move ahead.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and so we're putting the call out there. If there are any businesses that would like to perhaps be a naming rights of the Pikey and Loughz show, we'd love your support. If you're enjoying what we're bringing to you, why not put your name on it as the brand spreads a bit, and you guys can partner with us. And our goals are aligned, bringing you positive Taipans coverage and some in-depth insights into how we see the game, and yeah, it would just really help the program move along.
Absolutely. Just quickly, I want to reflect back on last week's show before we move on to today's show, Loughz. And we had the Taipans team psychologist, Jodie Maguire, on as a special guest. You had a terrific chat with her, and it was for me, I was really proud to give her the spotlight, because she's somebody that's an unheralded hero in a lot of ways of not only the Taipans, but all the work that she does. And I got some feedback from her during the week, which it was probably unexpected, and I didn't expect this sort of feedback, but she was listening to our show in the car with her daughters, and it just, for her, the things that we were saying about her, it blew her away completely. And for her daughters to hear that, for her it almost made everything that she's doing and all the hard work she's put in for a long time worth it, just to have that moment with her daughters, and for us to be able to provide that on the Pikey and Loughz show, that's something pretty special.
I guess I never really thought about, why would she be surprised that it was that her work was so positively influencing, my time at the Taipans and in elite sports? Maybe I've underestimated, how much feedback we've kind of given her, maybe or maybe it was just a light bulb moment that, hey, look, all the work was paying off. Here's an example of someone who's gone through a lot of big years and now has a chance to reflect on his career. Wasn't it great to get that sort of feedback? So, but yeah, definitely an awesome moment to hear that, Pikey. Really happy to hear that. With the family in the car and listening in, that would be an awesome moment.
Not sure if you'll get the same feedback from our special guest this week, but you've had a terrific chat with a very special man around Cairns and a former Taipans player.
Absolutely.
What can we look forward to?
Yeah, look, a personality around Cairns. I guess we will reveal the name shortly, but you'd be hard-pressed if you live in Cairns or have been to any of the Taipans or Marlins games that you wouldn't have come across this guy. You would have crossed paths for sure. So looking forward to that one later in the show, Pikey.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life.
Now, we've got 3 games to dissect from the Taipans over the last week, so we won't waste too much more time, but I've got some very quick questions I want to throw your way, Loughz, before we head into it. First of all, you had a big statement last week. It was a beauty. I just want to follow up. Monday night, did the Taipans end up making Melo and Melbourne United Trimble in their boots?
Trimble at the knees, they did. So, and I got to confess something, Pikey. I was fully prepared and had camera ready to capture it all, but I was fully prepared to start the boring chant. Now, this is what I needed. I needed a minute left in the game, and I needed 8 points, 7 or 8 points or more, the game done, to then go boring, boring, and I chickened out. And the reason is Kuat Noi went to the free throw line, and they're up by 6. Okay,
yep.
If he made the free throw, it would have been 7, and the game was done. Right. And then I would have started the boring chant. He missed the first, and I was like, oh, I can't quite, if he misses the second, if there's anyone in the league that can shoot 2 threes in quick succession, it's Chris Golding. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to back myself here. I'm just going to hold out. And so he got to 7 points, and then it was timeout. I was like, sweet, here's my next opportunity. But then the music came on. Basically, I chickened out, let's be honest. But I would have loved to start the boring chant and get the whole crowd giving it to Melo just for a bit of fun, bit of stick.
On last week's show, we hadn't heard Melo's comments calling the Taipans fans bored or boring or whatever his comments were. Were you surprised when you did come across them?
I think the comment was, it was a throwaway line, but he was basically saying, look, I think the Taipans fans were either a bit bored at how the basketball was, or he was sort of saying, look, the Taipans fans rock up to games just for supporting a local club. They don't actually really get into basketball like Melbourne fans were. So, I mean, I imagine there's sports galore in Melbourne. You're going to find your fanatics, and there's 8 million in Melbourne, so you're going to find those hardcore fanatics in their droves supporting basketball. So maybe that was more of what it is. But as you know, in media, you grab any kind of angle and morsel and you run with it. And certainly Joe Blake gave him a lot of stick, throughout the night, being a ball hog kind of thing. That was the angle they were going for, and even did a live skit on the court. But that game is a great game, except for the first quarter. You can't give up 30 points in the first quarter. But no. I don't want to digress too much. If you want to break down that Adelaide
very
game
quickly,
as well.
Yeah, a couple of more quick questions, and then we can get into it. Your first game as a retired player, Loughz, you were there on Monday night. What was that like? Yeah,
look, I missed that first home game, so this was my first time back in the building since dropping a mic down there on mid-February. Look, it was great. It was really good to be in the building and enjoying the boys get up and down and obviously get the win, and seeing a few familiar faces there. I feel like I've gone through a bit of a journey since finishing up and starting my own business and then getting the marketing role at Hemingway's, and just kind of trying to adjust to the real world and the business world. So, coming back to the games, I thought, am I going to get itchy feet, things like that, and really want to be out there on the floor. I was just happy that I was able to relax at the games, have a beer at the game, see some faces, knowing that, I'd done my time there and really did as much as I could, but it was just fun to be back in that setting and mixing it up. So really enjoyed the game.
Fascinated to get your thoughts on a couple of things that happened across the weekend as well, and one of them you will touch on with our guests later in the show. Unsportsmanlike fouls that have been called at the moment. It led to Andrew Bogut getting ejected with 8 minutes to go in Sydney's win over Brisbane on the weekend, and also Jared Kenny on Monday night. Probably the most unlikely ejection, but he copped a couple of one unsportsmanlike foul and then a tech foul as well. What are you making of those calls at the moment, Loughz?
What I'm seeing is, and I'll even touch on in the Perth game, I think Terrico White got a foul when a long pass in transition was thrown over the top. The player is running back and just eyeballing the player who's about to catch it. So he's got his head turned to where the ball is. Now, if you're running at the player and trying to time it just right, innocently, put your hands up and you're trying to time your interception just right by just eyeballing the guy who's about to catch, that's kind of when these players have been picked up. When they get their incidental contact, still got your hands in there, but they're not making a play on the ball ball. They're not looking up at the ball. That's when the refs are calling them kind of on a technicality. They're calling an unsportsmanlike foul. We saw Fab get one as well for the Taipans against Adelaide, running back when the pass was coming over the top of his head.
So
we're seeing
basket,
a bit of technical kind of rule book type thing. Well, we're going to pick up on this year. It seems to be the call from the refs. So that's been called a tech. But the unsportsmanlike on Jared Kenny, first of all, was a bit of, I thought it was fine as an unsportsmanlike technical foul because it was a hard foul. And I think he wasn't really jumping up to try and block and make a play on the ball. It was clearly to take out the player and just put your hand up for the foul. So maybe that was an unsportsmanlike technical foul. But then he obviously ran his mouth in another quarter, running down the floor. He might have even just said to the ref something like, "Look, my mullet's pretty primo here. Your haircut's nothing." And the ref took offence to that, said, "Look, mate, you're off." So,
but when nobody else can hear what he's saying, should it be a tech?
Should it be a tech? Well, I mean, it's the same with the coaches sort of mouthing off, and the ref says, "Mate, I've given you a warning." Maybe the ref had said something before, perhaps a little bit soft to get one, just running down the floor making an absent-minded comment. But he certainly, he went off for the rest of the game. I mean, these guys are leaving because if you get two technicals, no matter who gets the first one, the second technical foul is automatic ejection. So I can see that being a bit of a problem. If it wasn't, let's say it was Cam Oliver, Jared Kenny got the first tech, and let's say Cam Oliver said something coming down the floor in that second quarter, and he gets the second technical of the game, and he's out for the rest of the game. Like, this is a superstar that people are paying money to come and see. The Taipans this is the marquee player, new to the league. Imagine if he got sent out for the game and then the game's done. Someone with a massive influence like Bogut getting kicked out. It's. I think you got to have. You got to, for the product, you have to keep the superstars in the game. It happens in the NBA. They talk about it a lot. Keeping the superstars on the floor, keeping the product really exciting. It's crucial for the longevity of how the season's going to pan out,
Well, you've got 10,000 people in Sydney. Most of those people there, it's fair to say, aren't basketball fanatics. They're there for the sideshow. And how many of them are going to be happy to see Andrew Bogut, the star of the show, to miss the last 8 minutes of a game?
I think a referee has to be really self-assured in this day and age to kind of control that sort of situation, because these are big egos. I mean, Bogut's always going to run his mouth, and he tries to use that to his advantage, which he does effectively on many occasions. He's able to work the refs over. If it's a petty sort of, "I'm going to make a stand" kind of call from the ref, I think you have to really take into account the implications of sending the number one superstar of the game off the floor, because that's not a product you don't want to, as much as you want the bench guys to get minutes and things like that, you don't want to, through that kind of thing for a game and, have that spoil the chance to see the superstar go to work.
Very quickly, Loughz, a little bit left field as well. You're closely linked to the Cairns Marlins still. The QBL's now becoming NBL 1 and joining up with that brand. Your quick thoughts on that?
I've always thought that all those leagues in that second tier should be closely related, because if someone can organise the leagues to start and finish at the same time, and then have the winners of each league come together for a weekend tournament, I think that'd be a huge thing for Australian basketball. I think there'd be a lot of interest in a organised, aligned competition. So this is obviously one more step maybe in their big plan. So you get a blueprint of a successful league. I'm not saying the QBL is not successful. I'm not saying the SBL and WA is not successful. Sure. I think there's quality leagues. And I think the South Australian League and Waratah League are a little bit below that. But here's one thing, Pikey, I will give you this. The NBL, right, sits at a certain level, okay? NBA's way above, I get it. Okay, the NBL sits at a certain level, down a bit. There is a paddock in between the NBL and the QBL or the CBL or NBL 1 CBL or the SBL. Don't be fooled that if you're going to score 30 in the QBL or the SBL and WA, that you're going to automatically be scoring 20 or something in the NBL. There is a paddock in between the two leagues. It takes a lot to jump from the QBL or the level below to the NBL. So let's get that thing straight first.
Sure.
The NBL 1 league in the Southeast in Seabull, or the QBL, now being branded NBL 1, there's a huge jump for a player to make it into the big league, into the NBL. Don't be fooled by what it takes to jump from that league up. Let's take Jeremy Kendall, for example. He averaged 35 points a game, or somewhere around that, playing for Bendigo Braves in the Seabull a few years ago. Since then, he's played at different teams in the QBL and all that. But he came into he's sitting there thinking, and this is a few years ago now, because I remember because I've had teammates on his team. They said, look, he's sitting there going, how am I averaging 33 a game and not getting a contract for the NBL? Like, he's like, what is going on here? And I'm not quoting him exactly, but he's surprised, right? And it took many years to even get a look in for the Brisbane Bullets. And even then, he's obviously had suffered an injury that's put him out for a year or so. I think it's
and even then, he was only a replacement player at the
really
time too.
Unfortunate injury of playing that 3-on-3, I think it was.
Yeah.
But the difference between the leagues is huge. You're not just going to automatically kill it if or think that you're right on the cusp of putting up big numbers in one of those lower leagues, Seabull or QBL, that you just automatically, it's going to translate into the NBL. It just doesn't. There's a whole number of factors that come into it. Size of the player for one. An undersized big might kill it in these lower leagues, but just be too undersized in the NBL. Things like that, and just the pace of the game. I mean, you see how big Casper Ware and these guards, Scotty Machado, all these guards, they're solid. They're grown men. Like, you can get away with not being as strong as these guys in those lower leagues. But as soon as you come up to the NBL, man, they've all of a sudden, they've got a few kilos on you. They're going to dominate those kind of guys. So, the NBL 1 joining the QBL, I think that's a great thing. I think it's exciting to watch up-and-coming players do big things in those leagues, because then you go, oh, wow, that's the natural progression. He was in juniors. I remember seeing him there. Now he's killing it in, the QBL or the Seabull or the SBL over in Perth. And it's really fun to see, because it's their lives at stake. These players are playing their hearts out and not getting paid, essentially. But how awesome would it be to have a level platform to see the progression, or see the game of the week from the SBL, see the game of the week from NBL 1 in Melbourne, see the game of the week for NBL 1 in Queensland, see the game of the week NBL 1 in Adelaide, and you just have this kind of platform. It's juicy for me to see. I think it's a juicy sort of concept that there'll be so many, 12 to 16 teams in each of those 5 leagues. Imagine that'd be huge. Like the number of players coming through, it would be exciting to watch. But don't be fooled. There is a paddock in between the jump from that level up to the NBL.
Yeah, I think the biggest bonus will be the exposure. I'm not sure there was a huge gap between the NBL 1 competition of this past season to the QBL in terms of the standard of play. It was just the exposure. You had every NBL 1 game just about available to watch on live stream. It had a whole bigger machine behind it, so it could get promoted a lot more. And I think if the QBL can have that now next season, I think that's the only thing missing. I think the standard of the competition stacks up really well, as you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, holistically, I think you see, having all those games broadcast, it sounds really good on paper, and it is great for basketball. I know individually, like a club like the Marlins would be like, well, our numbers were way down. When a game's broadcast, there's a solid figure that they know will not show up to the game. Like, it could be 20 or 30%. Like, that's the difference between securing another import the following year. If games are broadcast, then ticket sales suffer. And you've got to be careful. Well, I know that they would be concerned about this sort of prospect, but obviously the deal's done at a higher level. And I think, they'd probably admit that for the good of the league, this platform, this blueprint from the NBL 1, which has come from, obviously, all the guys behind the digital side for the NBL, they've really, really done well to push it and promote it. I think it's going to be more accessible to watch and follow, which is a good thing.
All right, Loughz, it's time to move on because we've got 3 games to get through that the Taipans have played inside the last week. It started Friday night, Adelaide Entertainment Centre. The Taipans started really well. terrific first quarter. I think they're up by as much as 8 points, and they again had a chance down the stretch. It was a pretty tight game. It was a really good game of basketball. A lot of good things from the Taipans' point of view. Cam Oliver was really good again. 21 points shot. He's probably not taking enough shots for my liking. Only took 9 shots, but he hit 9 of them. Hit 3 threes. 21 points, six rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks. He had a huge night. DJ Newber was really solid with 18 points as well. A lot to like from what the Taipans did. Scotty Machado, 14 and 9 up against Jerome Randall. But in the end, I thought the difference was Adelaide's 2 most experienced players, Daniel Johnson and Jerome Randall, got the job done for them.
Yeah, look, it seems like an eternity ago last Friday. The one thing that sticks out that I remember, the commentators were sort of saying it was a self-induced kind of area where the Taipans broke down. Like it was within their control. It wasn't so much what Adelaide did. It was more that the Taipans shot themselves in the foot. Now it was 15 turnovers, and I think I'm going to revise my team turnover acceptance level. I've said, look, in a slow walk-it-up game, you'd allow 11 turnovers a game because you're limiting the number of possessions. In a fast-paced game, you want to push the ball, you're probably going to give them 15 turnovers maximum. I think I want to revise that down to 13. I think 15 turnovers was too much in this Adelaide game, and they're a run and gun team, and they really capitalised on some of the mistakes. So yeah, I'm revising it down to 13. I think they certainly played well in a 4-point game. Gee, they were so close, and coming off that Perth game, I thought, playing in a hostile environment, a brand new stadium in Adelaide as well, with some absolute killers in Jerome and DJ. I thought they really put up a good performance, but I know they'll be. That's the game that you'll be kicking yourself later on in the season. Like, if we just looked after the ball just a little bit more, we would have liked the position that we're in. We would have had a crucial win early on the road, which is hard to do. I think I agree with the commentators. I think it was a little bit sort of a self-induced sort of error that sort of lost them the game, and I think, which is a good thing. It's within your control, which means you can do something about it. And then they turned it around for Monday night to put the clamps on late in, except for the first quarter. The game at home, they put the clamps down for, second quarter through to the fourth.
Yeah, Monday night was fantastic. Melbourne United came to town having won their first game of the season 2 days earlier, and this was a game they had to win because they couldn't afford to slip to 1-4 to start their season, and they started like it as well. They were on fire in that first quarter, and Sean Long for a lot of that game looked unstoppable. Finished with 21 and 17. Mitch McCarron, one of your former teammates, had a really good night. Melo Trimble's battle with Scotty Machado was fantastic. For some reason, Chris Goulding doesn't like playing in Cairns too much. He didn't have a great game, shot 3 or 14, but after that slow start, giving up 31 points in the first quarter, once the Taipans locked into the game, sometimes it can take up all of your energy to fight back and get back into it. But it seemed like once they were able to get back into the game, get things on their terms, they just felt they had Melbourne's measure, and that's the way they played the rest of the game. It was a really good performance for the last 3 quarters.
Well, two things that stood out in that first quarter. There seemed to be Gladderup on the rim. They were really attacking well. Really got some good angles. Rose up, took the contact, tried to finesse the shot, and it just wasn't going in. And then Melbourne United were grabbing it and running, fast pace and trans, and just finding open shooters. While the Taipans were still trying to get back. So they were attacking. You had an attacking mindset, but just couldn't finish, and that led to trans points. The other thing, Sean Long, I thought had his way against the bigs in that first quarter. He was pulling in all the rebounds, and a few other players were helping. 9
in the first quarter alone.
Oh, it was too much. And then I've said this in another interview that I saw Cam Oliver in a huddle, one of those player huddles before a free throw. He within himself, he slapped his hands, he clapped his hands and says, like, no! Like, he just took a stand and said, come on, Cam, you're better than that. Like, he does give up a bit of height against some of the taller fives of the league, but his strength and his athleticism will make up for it. He just had to be consciously switched on to box out those bigs earlier, and use the body and kind of at least take out one of the bigs so that, someone else at Kawat Noi or Deng can swoop in and get a rebound. So that first quarter, they're just a bit lackadaisical in their box outs and things. So he made a stand. The second quarter, collectively, they got it done, which was great to see. They held Melbourne to a 10-point quarter instead of a 30-point quarter. So all of a sudden, you're going into the halftime break. Was it up by 4 or down by 4? I can't even. I thought it was down by only a few, or they might have even flipped.
No, it was still down by 4. Yeah,
down by 4. Yeah. So, but the momentum was on their side. They'd locked into what the task was, and then came out in the second half. And gee, it was exciting. There was so many. The battle between the point guards was epic, as you touched on. I think Scotty Machado won that battle. No, Melo had more points, but Scotty Machado really controlled the tempo. And that was the crucial difference. Scotty Machado would call the middle on ball, come off, and, the Melo's got no choice but to lock and trail over the top and then try and get back in front. Scotty Machado cuts him off and, basically he's got him on his back. And then from there, he's able to make the decision to rise up and shoot the mid-range or attack the big and drop it off to the big rolling. So he just was able to, find the angles, cut the defender point guard off and hold him on his back and just put him in submission and then make the right read from there. It was really poised. And he even, a couple of times he even just put up his hand and said, stop, like everyone just stop. You go over there, basically tuck the ball under your arm and say, wait, no, we're running this play and we're doing it my way and we're doing it in the timing that I want, and then good things were happening. So it was a delight to see that from a point guard, and you just go, man, that would be a dream teammate to have on your squad. And I'm sure a lot of teams around the league will be licking their lips, going, man, I can't wait to throw some money at him next year.
Yeah. 2 big numbers that you would have liked: only 6 turnovers for the game and 26 bench points, 18 of which came from big Nate Jawai.
Nate Jawai with his 100th game for the Taipans. I thought he really kept them in touch, especially when they were down by a lot of points in that first quarter and second. He really made some grown man moves, putting the ball in the bucket and just keeping them within arm's reach of clawing the game back. And then he followed through with a great second half. But I really thought he really, pulled them through that tough stretch there. 6 turnovers, that's great. But how many points off the bench did you say? 26?
Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, I still stand by 25 points off the bench to really help a team all season long and into a playoff sort of contention. You got to have help off the bench. You can't just rely on your starters. It's too risky. I think if one of them goes down and you're relying on your starters every game, down the stretch or the length of a season, you're going to run into trouble. So the more we can get roughly 25 points off the bench from the squad, the better.
Now, they had a short turnaround. They didn't get too much time to enjoy the win. Headed straight over to Auckland to prepare to play the Breakers on Thursday. And again, it was a slow start. So can't quite nail the 4 quarters at the moment. I think New Zealand went on a 12-0 run in that first quarter. I think Corey Webster and RJ Hampton were on fire early on. But the Taipans were able to work their way back into the game. Then they started the second half on fire and were able to take the lead there for a little bit. And even down the stretch, I think there was just under a minute to go. Majuk Deng knocked down a big 3 and they were back within 4 points again. So they had their chances in this game on Thursday, but we probably didn't expect to see an 18-year-old in RJ Hampton at this point in his career knock down those sort of 3-pointers, but he ended up being the difference.
No, yeah, exactly right. And, he was averaging, 7 or 8 points a game and playing within a system. I didn't really predict a breakout game, with 16 points and 3 daggers in the fourth.
He hadn't been shooting the long ball
from beyond the arc
very well at all, yeah.
Yeah, and four threes overall, I believe.
He did.
So, I mean, that was the difference for them. I thought... and this game I watched a little bit, then I had to go to my son's basketball training, and then I'm watching a little bit on my phone as I was coaching the kids, and then came home to watch the rest of it, and then my kids are coming up to me with slime on their hands saying, hey, look at this slime, and basically shoving it in my face. I'm trying to watch the game. Guys, get away. Just get away. I'm trying to watch the game. And then, so I did catch glimpses of everything that's going on. But what I did see, I thought the fight back was great. I thought they obviously, it's tough to go over the ditch, 3-hour time difference, get settled in and play the next day. Like it's hard to sort of get all that in check on your first go round. But yeah, I thought they played well. I thought they had opportunities. Were able to cause some steals, cause some disruption. So yeah, it's a tough one. It was a 4-point game basically. That once they had to pressure at the end, there it blew out to 8 points. But really, it's another single digit. Right there, 4-point loss. 8-point loss, but a 4-point game. That some positives, but once again, these all start to rack up. So let me just remind you of my figures. So 16 wins will get you in a logjam at the end of the season, which means you're aiming for a strong home performance of 12 out of 14 wins at home. Would be fun because you only have to win 4 on the road to roughly put you in contention. But if you lose any more games at home, you sort of make it tough for yourself on the road to try and get more than those 4 road wins. So, they've got 1 win on the road, they've got 1 win at home, plenty more hoops to go, but you just got to keep that in the back of your mind. I think 17 gets you 4th place. I think 16 wins gets you in a logjam that you don't want to be in. You certainly don't want anything less than 16.
2 numbers you wouldn't have liked in that Thursday game. The opposite to Monday night, 19 turnovers and 2 bench points. It's not going to be the winning formula, is it?
No, it's not going to be. And I'll stand by my 13 turnovers number again. And 2 points off the bench. It is a tough one because you do need contributions, and it's not always points. I do admit that. But at the same time, there's just in general terms, you have to find a way that everyone has to make an assertive sort of effort to be thinking, right, we're going to need to help out and do some heavy lifting here. But I mean, sometimes the game swings around. Sometimes, players get foul trouble. Hopefully this is just sort of once in a blue moon type situation where normally there's a lot more contribution coming from, the 2 or 3 that Mike will rotate through on the bench. Obviously, he's sort of playing about 7 or 8 players. Maybe he's playing more sort of 7 players, really. But, it does go a long way down the stretch of a season.
Let's get moving, Loughz, because we've got a special interview to get to on this week's show as well. Very quickly, just let me know what jumps out at you from the other results from last weekend across the league. New Zealand got their first win of the season, beat the Illawarra Hawks 103-72 with 1.9 million people across the world watching that game.
If you please.
Perth Wildcats hammered Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, their first ever road trip and first ever loss, 110-79. Melbourne United got on the board on Saturday, beat New Zealand 104-98. Sydney Kings still undefeated, beat the Brisbane Bullets 94-79. The Southeast Melbourne Phoenix then responded pretty well. They beat the Adelaide 36ers at home on Sunday, 101-91, and the Perth Wildcats backed up as well with a pretty tough win against an Illawarra Hawks team who now has lost Aaron Brooks and might not have Josh Boone for much longer either.
Yeah, I know it's
anything stand out.
It's going to be a little bit of sort of tough times in Illawarra. I thought, so Sydney Kings have got Deshaun Taylor, who was fired from Adelaide earlier in the season. So that's an interesting move. Often you don't see a player brought back to life within the same league unless the coach sees something that he really particularly needs. And I think in this case, Coach Will Weaver is pretty strategic in how he sees players. So he's obviously looking for, with Lish out, he's saying, look, I don't mind a little bit of scoring, but mainly defense. I'm thinking defense here, and my other superstars will get the job done. So that's an interesting to see how that one pans out.
And I think it helps when it's a short-term replacement. It helps that this is the guy who did the whole preseason here, so he's actually familiar with the league. So I think it helps not having a guy completely coming in out of the blue.
Yeah. How long do you think Lish is going to be out for? What's your take on
8 weeks at this point from here?
Okay. And I'm not sure where that league, the team was that he was at currently. I
think they had to buy him out of his contract because he had signed to play somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. They got him. They bought him out of there. So Southeast Melbourne Phoenix obviously strong at home and happy to get the juices flowing there. They won that road trip to Melbourne United earlier on, but it was kind of a home game, I guess. Didn't have to go too far. Their
Still on the same
first
floor.
big road trip. Certainly got a touch up by an angry Wildcats team that certainly weren't happy with their performance against the Taipans a week before. So they've obviously rejuvenated there, sure, and certainly put the clamps on a hapless Phoenix. But for Phoenix to play Adelaide, obviously Mitch Creek's former side, he would have been juiced for that game and to get the win over Joey Wright. So look, I think they're still strong, the Phoenix. I think Sydney have been very professional, 5-0. Probably most teams are starting to play 6 or 7 games now, so Sydney still have a bit to catch up. No, interesting things around the league. With Illawarra, I wonder if, it doesn't look like they're going to have a great year. I was really disappointed Aaron Brooks being out. I know it's a really unfortunate injury, but I was really excited to see. I thought he was a really exciting player to watch, and looking forward to all the matchups versus all the teams' point guards, see how he would fare and see how others like Melo, Trimble would go against Aaron Brooks and all those matchups, those juicy point guard lineups, throughout the year. So really unfortunate for him and really sad to see him finish up. It sounded like a little bit like curtains, the way he was sort of going on social media.
I think when you're 36 and it's a ruptured Achilles, it's a long road back. I mean, it's almost like you, if you did your Achilles right now, do you think you could make it back?
Well, you'd feel when you come back, you're tentative. It takes a good sort of maybe year to get back into fully, yourself. But then if you don't have the explosion, then you don't quite have the edge that you had. And then you just sort of, it would be so frustrating and almost the right call if it was the case. I hope it's not, but it did sort of sound like that. So it would be, okay, does LaMelo Ball, does he leave the Hawks before the end of the season because perhaps they haven't gone well throughout the year and it's really nothing for him to leave early? And in the same tone of token, does RJ Hampton leave as well if the season for New Zealand's been up and down and his stock's risen and he's good to go? Like, do both those players just up and leave their respective teams, grasping for what's left of the season?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the LaMelo one is probably more immediate because if he's part of a team that's now struggling, they're 1-6 at the moment, and they now without Brooks, and we're not sure what's happening with Josh Boone. It's tough to see them turning it around. How far do his stocks fall if he's playing part of a losing team and he ends up probably taking more and more poor shots? I have to wonder that there might be a point that's coming within the next maybe 6 or 8 weeks where his camp suggests that he's probably better off getting out of there. I think maybe RJ Hampton in New Zealand's in a bit better situation because he's in a team that's going to be playing better and that can keep him a bit level-headed. And I think I've heard him say that he's here for the end of the season no matter what. But I have my doubts that LaMelo's going to be in here for the long haul.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any hesitation to, very quickly up and leave if need be. Like it's just sort of a business decision. Let's say, let's call it what it is. I think it's a lily pad to jump to the next level. As soon as that next lily pad is available, they'll be off and away. If RJ Hampton is saying those things, then tend to believe that perhaps he is sort of in for the long haul. However, he's possibly not the one making the decision.
Well,
his entourage
right.
is like a boardroom is probably the one making the call, and they'll make the call the best the way they see fit, and he will just sort of go along with whatever decision is made. But they certainly bring a lot of attention as a club. Do you sign up a risk like that? Like obviously the Taipans have not gone down that path. Didn't want to bring that kind of. It is a risk because. If your star player leaves, then you're stuffed because how are you going to finish a season? What if it was a promising season and the numbers were great and then all of a sudden, Scotty Machado just goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to the NBA. See you guys. I mean, you'd be happy for the individual, but you'd be like, you're sitting there going, oh, man, we could have been something this year.
Well, exactly, because let's be honest, neither of those two guys are here because they want to win an NBL championship. They're here because they thought it would help them end up being drafted as high as possible into the NBA. That's why they're here.
But then the flip side is 1.9 million viewers now watching the game between Wollongong Hawks and New Zealand Breakers, how good is that for the league? Like, that's the flip side that, you know, the NBL is prepared to enjoy to showcase some exciting athletes. So I think the purists will probably go, oh, this is a circus now. What is all this? There's not good passing. There's not good pivoting. There's not good, you know, next tactical play, you know, and I think, but I think the league, in terms of the need for viability, it's obviously a great move because the numbers are huge and the upside is huge and the eyeballs and the interest and the quality of players and the product has all risen.
And I think we'll find next Saturday night in Cairns that we'll have a jam-packed convention centre to watch LaMelo Ball as well. I think he's finding that everywhere he goes across the league, and I think Cairns will be no different.
Absolutely. It'll be exciting to watch, and I'll certainly be there and put my feet up and have a cold brewski.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life.
Perfect transition, Loughz. We've got a special guest on this week's show, and he'll be there as well. Can you fill us in?
He will be, absolutely. You know, he was interviewed on NBL the last home game there at the Taipans. He wears the dark shades, but it is for a reason, Pikey, and it's been a tough year for Matt Smith.
Yeah, I wasn't happy that he got made fun of. It wasn't a Casey Prather situation where he just wanted to look good.
Yeah, no, it was certainly a serious thing that he's got, and I do agree with you. Probably not the right idea to make light of it. Listen to what he's got to say. I thought it was really insightful, and it's obviously been a tough time for him, but he certainly had some good support around him to help him through, and it's always a long journey from here. He can exercise again, Pikey, since he had a stroke not too many months ago at the ripe old age of 39. He's now 40 years old. Yep. But let's listen in and see what the big fella's got to say.
All right, I'm joined by NBL veteran Matt Smith. He's recently turned 40 years old. We won't hold that against him because it's not bad being 40. Matt Smith, how are you going?
Yeah, not too bad, Al. Just finished the day work, which is what men like you and I do now.
Is this the real world? Is this the real world?
It is, and you understand once you're in it why we spent so much time sort of trying to avoid it. An 8-hour day is a remarkably long time.
It's a long time.
At work.
I feel like it's a really long day. I'm not used to. We're not used to this kind of life. Are we built for this life? At 6'11", are you built for this life after basketball? Is real world something you want to avoid at all costs?
I kind of feel like if I had the option of maybe optioning off sort of 6 inches to people who are under 5'8" or something like that, and they could get the experience of being tall, I could still be 6'5", 6'6". That'd be the way to go, because being sort of 6'11" in the real world is not advantageous. I get a lot of people asking me for help in supermarkets with high shelves, that sort of stuff, and you know, doors are a bit of a problem, and I don't get any of the other benefits that come with professional sport.
Right. All right. So for those that don't know Matt Smith, you'd be pretty hard pressed not to come across something to do with Matt Smith in your time in Cairns. He's a local personality. He's a courtside announcer for the Cairns Taipans. He played for the Taipans for 2004 to 2009. Matt Smith, do you have any great memories from your career, not only with New Zealand Breakers, but with the Cairns Taipans? Anything from the Cairns Taipans that sticks out for you?
Look, I think I actually sort of, as much as I came into my own as an NBL player, it was in Cairns. Like I had some real fun times and good opportunities. I think probably one that stands out is the night Martin Catalini and I combined for 55 points against the Brisbane Bullets team, and they went on to win the championship that year. I think that was the last loss they got all season.
Combined for 55 points. That's amazing. How many did Martin Catalini have?
I don't know that that's really important to the story, but for those of you who are keeping score at home, it was 51, but my 4 were important. Had I not scored 4 points, we'd have only won by 7.
Well,
it's a percentage.
Mate, I can do you one better. The score was actually 122 to 119, so you only won by 3 points. If you didn't score your 4 points, it wouldn't have made the history books.
Well, then this might be the only time you ever hear me undersell myself.
Mate.
If I had that story again, I'd talk about how I led us to victory.
What was Catalini like as a guy around the club?
Oh, he was great. Cat and I were pretty close during his time here, and it was nice to have him around because he was better than everyone else. But he also knew and understood that he was better than everyone else, and basically did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. It was like the first training session I'd come to Cairns, I was up on a bit of a tryout, and we finished off a scrimmage, and Alan Black's trying to get us to go again, and Cass basically gone, no, I think we've had enough. And we put our hands in and did 1, 2, 3 Taipans and went home. It was just like, I was like, oh my God.
And Coach Black was happy with that? He just went along with it?
Yeah, he went along with it. I thought, I'm going to attach my card to this guy right here, because this will keep me from unemployment, being close to a man who wields this much power.
So he sets the tone.
Oh, yeah.
Mate, let's go to the game on Monday night, the Taipans. Gee, what an awesome performance. Perhaps not the first quarter to give up 30 points, but certainly to close out the game and win in that sort of fashion. What were your thoughts on the game from your seat right next to the court there?
Well, I was watching that first quarter, and my partner Renee had brought a friend along to the game. It was their first ever basketball experience. And I texted her midway through the first. I thought, oh, God, this is terrible. Well, I'm sorry that Macy's come along to this.
Yeah.
And Renee's nice. She's like, oh, it's okay. Maybe it'll turn around. And I didn't hold out a lot of hope. And they turned it on. I think if you're the Taipans,
the ever optimist, Matty, the ever optimist you are, of course.
Optimist. Well, look, it's been a rough year. If you're Mike Kelly, that's really encouraging, because it's showing the team's got that character to come back and really fight hard, and to get that win, particularly when you've got Melo Trimble playing against you after some of the less than flattering things you may have said about the team and the town. For the guys to step up in such a way, and everyone did. Everyone who hit the court played really well to get them over the line there against Melbourne United team, who everyone had picked as an early title favourite this year. I guess probably along with Perth and Sydney. It's a really good win. I think it'll do wonders for their confidence. If you're looking at the wins that they've had this year, the Taipans being Perth in Perth and Melbourne United, and they pushed Sydney pretty hard as well. That's really encouraging for such a young team.
Have you been impressed with the league bigs in particular? We've spoken a lot about Cam Oliver and his superstardom coming into the Cairns Taipans, but really he's quite well matched around the league, with all teams loading up with some really quality bigs out there. Would you be worried playing in the league in this day and age with the NBA caliber players coming down under?
Not really, because I got lit up by much less talented players than that. Tim Berendorf handed me 36 in a QBL game once, so I have no fear. If Sean Long goes for 40 on me, then he's just 5 points better than Berendorf. That's nothing special.
Let's talk about the mullet. This is possibly one of the more important elements of this game to take home. Now, Jared Kenny received an unsportsmanlike tech foul within the opening quarter, only to receive a second technical foul for perhaps running his mouth running down the floor. There was an exchange with the referee. Now, I don't know exactly what was said, but it could have been something along the lines of, look, my hair's better than yours, so, give me a few calls. And then the ref didn't like that. What was your take on 2 tech fouls for the mullet and sending the mullet down to the locker room for maintenance?
I was sad to see the mullet go, because I like it when he runs fast and it billows behind him in such a poetic fashion.
It does billow.
I find that mesmerising.
Right.
I have no idea what happened. I was trying to keep up with what the foul was and what was going on, and next thing I know, I see Vaughan Mabry pointing the general direction of the locker room.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking he can't have tossed him out.
He did, and never to return. Obviously, the second tech, meaning, whoever got the first one, it didn't really matter. Whoever got the second one, they're out. I mean, it could have been anyone, but I mean, the mullet, that's the price. Some people paid big dollars as the price of admission just to come and see a thing of beauty. What was, the disappointment must have been huge.
And for the 3,900 people there, you could feel the crowd visibly deflate, and I think that was probably the end of it for Melbourne too. They saw that what with the mullet left, and I think they were probably trying to impress the mullet. And once the impetus to play well before the mullet was there, this story had a better ending when I had actually thought it through a bit more quality and sense.
No, I mean it's one of the big talking points of this year. I mean, you sort of touched on it. It's billowing at the back. It's feathered and lethal. It's quite prominent in the league this year. So Jared Kenny, I mean, hats on with the mullet out the back to you. Hats off for wielding it all season long. And I can only imagine it's going to get longer. I'd like to get a ruler and get a length on the tail end of that mullet. I'm not sure if you ever have access to the players during a shoot around or during the game, Matty, but I think we might have to get a measurement on that.
Look, I'd love to. I'm not the sneakiest of people to sort of creep up on Jared Kenny and pull the old tape measure out and give it a length measurement, but I have been hanging it on him.
We are talking about his hair. Oh, yes, sorry. Yep.
At the post-game functions and things like that, so I'm not sure how happy he is with me at the moment, just because it's basically the only thing I've been talking to him about
okay.
and at any of the functions that I'm hosting for the Taipans has been his hair, and I think he's getting a bit over it, but I have pointed out to him on several occasions, look mate, you're 35. And we don't need to be cool anymore.
Right.
And look, I'm 40, so I definitely don't need to be cool. So he's of your vintage. So are you feeling the sudden and urgent need to bring back the Tennessee top hat?
Well, I think he's done well. I think it's been a work in progress for him. Matty, if I could just change tone a bit, you said you're 40 this year, just turned 40 last week. It's been a tough year for you. Do you mind sort of sharing a little bit about you've had a stroke earlier on in this year, and you're recovered or in that recovery process? What's been some of the big milestones in your recovery to lead you to where you are now?
I guess the first and biggest milestone in anything that you time you get hit with something like that is just survival. Yeah. So obviously I'm happy to be alive. Initially when I had the stroke, I couldn't speak for a little while. I couldn't feel or use my left hand at all. I couldn't read. So there was a period of time where I thought that my life was probably going to change fairly drastically. And over the course of the first probably week and a half, a lot of those small things came back. And then there's just a building of cognitive function and getting my strength back and all that kind of stuff as I move through the process. But I guess the big one for me has been in the last couple of weeks I've been cleared to exercise again. And that's been great because I was starting to get a bit soft around the edges, right, as you do from not doing anything for 6 months.
Yes.
When you've been active your entire life, to have that taken off you is a pretty large adjustment. It affects your mood as well as anything else, as well as near-death experiences and bits of your brain not working quite as they should. So I've embraced the ability to sort of get out and run and jump and lift weights and, well, not jump. I tried jumping the other day for those follow me on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Folks. Well, I thought there was something there. There was some elements of explosion.
Explosion, small whimper. It was. I can stand on the ground and hold a ball.
You were excited.
I was very excited.
Yeah.
I was pumped.
Right.
My daughter spoke. She spoke so much shit afterwards. She thought I was a complete disaster.
Oh.
But yeah, shout out to Scarlett for her video techniques.
Well, mate, let's talk about the support. Obviously, your kids been looking after you a bit, but a massive support in your partner, Renee. How big has that been to help you through this phase?
She's been amazing. We'd only been dating sort of 4 or 5 months when it happened, and she stepped up just in the kind of the biggest way possible. She's been there right from the beginning. She was in emergency with me when sort of it was maybe a bit touch and go, and we had every machine sort of in history plugged into me, trying to figure out whether the stroke was still happening and what was going wrong and all that kind of gear. But she's been incredibly supportive and very patient. So look, I can't speak highly enough of her. And it's obviously it's hard on the people who love you and the people that you love as well when they have to deal with something like this. It's not just one person that's affected, and she's taken it all in her stride. And she took me away for a few weeks to sort of chill out and relax in Alaska and Canada, so I didn't have to worry about the world for a bit. And I think that was probably really key to my recovery as well. And just knowing that you've got somebody who is there to help you out and and look after you when perhaps days aren't going so well and you're not able to function at the level you'd like to has been really, it's just been amazing.
So there's been a few sort of milestones that, you've mentioned you're allowed to exercise now in small stages. So it's going to be a lengthy sort of journey, hey?
Yeah, I'm told probably I'm another sort of 6 to 10 months away from being completely right. I've got something that they call post-stroke fatigue, which they don't know a whole lot about, but basically it's that just bone-weary tiredness that can be triggered by anything. So, basically I know in the morning if I get up and if I'm exhausted by the time I get to putting on my socks, I'm about to have a bad day.
Okay.
And there's just nothing, it doesn't matter if I rest then or whatever, it just usually takes sort of 24 hours to reset itself.
Right.
It's a bit interesting because there are no real outward symptoms at the moment. So my face doesn't droop unless I get really tired. If I do get really tired, I start to become a bit symptomatic.
Yeah.
But to just look at me, you wouldn't be able to tell that there's anything wrong. But aside from the sunglasses inside thing, which few people are enjoying.
Right. So wearing the sunglasses courtside has an actual benefit. It's not just trying to be cool.
I'd be lying if I'd say it wasn't, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. No, it's definitely a medical thing. The basketball stadium is quite a bright place,
right,
particularly with the way all the strobes are working and, all the different light shows going on. It is a bit overwhelming for me. I've also started wearing earplugs. Yep. To lessen the impact of the sound. It's really just a stimulus thing.
Yep.
So, anything that makes the brain work harder than it needs to, I try to avoid. But I also, to the same sort of token, I guess, it's the same as any other muscle. If you don't make yourself uncomfortable, you're never going to get any better.
Yep.
So I consider the Taipans and the basketball, that experience, to be part of my rehab and recovery. And also it's just nice to sort of get out and get around people again after I spent 6 months basically as a hermit.
Well, like I said, you're a personality around the club. It's great that you're still involved and like you said, you just be able to mix in and get back to try and do a semblance of normalness. You must be just a crazy kind of a period in your life, but I certainly enjoy seeing you around the games and hope to see you at all the remaining games of the season, of course.
Definitely be there, and I'm glad that you've started to show up. It's great when those older guys are coming back. It really creates that family environment, and it's great for the team culture, not just for those of us who haven't been, but for those of us who are going to come as well.
Absolutely. Matt Smith, thanks for your time.
No worries.
Thanks very much to Matt Smith there for catching up with you, Loughz. It was a terrific chat. He's a guy he's a very lighthearted fella. It's hard to get him to take things too seriously, but you were able to get a good mixture from him there. He's obviously somebody you've known for a long time, and you clearly always enjoy catching up with him. Was it nice to get a chance to sit down with him and just share a little bit of his journey?
Yeah, I think he's a really likeable personality. And it's funny, we never actually played on the same team, but I feel like if we did, we would have been boys. I think we would have got on really well. I think we share a bit of the same humour and dry sense of humour, I should say. So, no, it was great to catch up with Matty and just find out delve a little bit deeper into, what's been going on and the support that's been around him. Sounds like it's been really instrumental. So certainly love to see him around the games more as he's microphone on the court side, but certainly enjoying his company.
Absolutely, and I hope you're all enjoying our interviews that we're bringing you here on the Pikey and Loughz Show, because I guess anyone can bring you a quick chat with a current player who goes by and says all the right things and keeps things pretty,
got to be guarded a bit, don't
pretty
they?
guarded, yeah. But some of these guests that we've had now, Matt Smith and Jody Maguire, and even going back to when we did hear from Nate Jawai and even Mike Kelly. Thanks a lot for everyone that's joined us so far. And if you've got any ideas on who you might like to hear from on the Pikey and Loughz Show, drop us a line on our social media channels and we'll do our best for you. Now, Loughz, let's keep moving here. Bit of a break now for the Taipans. It's been a tough road. They've had 6 games in the last 20 days. 5 of those have been on the road, and now all of a sudden they've got a 9-day break before playing at home to the Hawks next Saturday. What can you do in a break like this after having such a sort of tough run where you just haven't had much time to yourself?
Well, it's certainly a good chance to have a day or two off and just rejuvenate a bit. Three home games in a row, 3 Saturdays in a row. That's delightful. That's right. You're sleeping in your own bed. You're in a bit of a routine. Get all the kinks out. You get your massages. You get your body right, and then you get refreshed. And I think Mike will be doing a great job of keeping the guys focused on on that kind of refreshing kind of mindset, and come back to training ready to go. Because obviously 2 and 5 is you want to get that back to close to 500 as soon as possible. And what a great opportunity, to do it against Wollongong on Saturday night.
With these 3 home games, there's the Hawks first up, then I think it's the Brisbane Bullets, and then it's the Perth Wildcats. Would you be expecting 3 wins and for the Taipans to get back to 5 and 5? Would that be your expectation? What's happening over the next 3 weeks?
Well, I think you obviously got to compartmentalize this 3-game stretch. I think it's just one game at a time, and listen to me talking about the cliches. I've just got to take it one game at a time. Got to get that first win against Wollongong Hawks. That's going to set the tone for the next 2 games after that. But it just gets the juices flowing. Don't be fooled that it'll be a walk in the park, but also be very, very optimistic that they're a team that's had a few injuries. They're a team that's sort of on the back foot a bit. They're a brand new side, brand new coat. Not to be underestimated, because you do that at your own peril in this league. But certainly they have some individual fantastic players, really exciting players to watch. But I really think that the team of the Taipans and the way it's controlled by Scotty Machado is far more mature than this Wollongong lineup. So I would go double-digit point win for the Taipans, 10 points.
Before the league gets to that, there's the rest of round 5 is pretty big for a number of teams. We'll just get your very quick thoughts on who you think will win. Friday night, Brisbane Bullets hosting the Perth Wildcats. Big game for Brisbane because they're really struggling at the moment.
If the Brisbane Bullets don't get over the line for this game, expect some changes, but I do think that the Wildcats will win in a very close sort of finish. So I'm going the Wildcats by 3 points.
Another Melbourne throwdown already. Southeast Melbourne, they don't have to travel too much in the first, I think, 8 or 9 rounds of the season. They host Melbourne United. And this is a big one, especially for United. They can't afford to go to 1 and 5.
They can't afford to go to 1 and 5, but I think Southeast Melbourne Phoenix will get the job done. They've proven very strong in Melbourne and certainly got a touch up in Perth on the road, so they're yet to be battle hardened on the road, but the home performances have certainly been huge. So I'm going for Phoenix. By probably going to be a win by 8 points.
Adelaide 36ers host the Sydney Kings. I would suggest the biggest crowd we've seen so far at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre for Jerome Randall taking on his old team and Andrew Bogut. Let's hope Deshaun Taylor's there because that adds a little bit of extra drama to the whole thing.
Makes it a bit of a spicy meatball. Sydney in Adelaide. Look, Adelaide did impress me a bit. I thought they stumbled early. That first game against Sydney, that's coming off a flight from US. They've been a lot more in sync with everything lately. So I'm actually going to go an Adelaide win in Adelaide over the Sydney Kings to give the Kings their first loss, and they will win by 4 points.
New Zealand hosting the Wildcats down in Invercargill, so a big road trip for the Wildcats this weekend.
I'm going to go New Zealand based on the fact that Wildcats, they obviously travel well, but it's a long way, and I think we could see a few more positive games from RJ Hampton as he gets on this little purple patch. So New Zealand Breakers by 8 points in Invercargill.
Illawarra Hawks and Brisbane Bullets in Canberra on Sunday. Two of the struggling teams at the moment.
I think Wollongong Hawks are actually going to win this one in overtime in Canberra. So I'm going to go a 5-point win to Illawarra in overtime against Brisbane Bullets.
Then last up, Melbourne Cup Eve in Melbourne. Melbourne United hosting the Sydney Kings. Rematch of the semi-finals from last year. Casper Wegg going back to Melbourne for the first time as part of the Kings. This should be a cracker.
I think Sydney Kings are actually going to get this one by a comfortable margin. I'm going to say Sydney Kings by 10 points.
It sounds like you're writing off Melbourne United. If they lose both these like you're expecting, 1 and 6, I'm not sure they can come back from that.
No. And I think it's a bit of maturity at a lot of their positions. I think they've got some exciting, energetic, very capable scoring imports and contributors, but I just don't think they have the maturity to close out these games. And I think teams that are controlled and teams that are steady seem to seem to get the job done. So, and it's not a slight on Melo. It's not a slight on Sean Long individually. I just think collectively there's just not enough discrepancy between the age difference. You sort of have a mix. You can't just have all young guys and all, or all old guys. You've got to have a good sort of mix and enough veterans around to bring in the young guys if that is the case. But so it's going to be they're going to be fighting to obviously get their season on track, but it could be a bit of an interesting time for Melbourne United.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life.
But we're all about the Taipans here on the Pikey and Loughz Show, and it's been a big show. 3 games in the last week for us to look back on. Now we've got a bit of a break, and we can look forward to next Saturday night at home to the Hawks and LaMelo Ball coming to town. I'm sure everybody will be excited for that. But first of all, Loughz, let's get your final thoughts.
Mate, a great showdown against the Wollongong Hawks coming on Saturday. Like you said, it is something to watch. This is a future NBA superstar, and it's certainly exciting to be in a venue to witness what the kind of caliber player it is. So expect a Taipans win and a good team win, but be excited for the players on the floor.